brought to the subcommittee was hyper-technical points of order. I usually play defense. There are members that like to play offense, and maybe they like the hyper-technical points of order, but I tend to prefer, this is me personally speaking, that legislation rise or fall based off of its merits, as opposed to whether or not a committee minute was perfectly accurate or whether or not a witness's registration was perfectly there. But I understand that you have to have rules and they have to be enforced. We consider several proposals, some as broad as just getting rid of bill analyses. Some argue that basically, everybody knows what the bill says and everybody gets the HRO on their desk and it can explain it to them already. So why do we put committee staff and legislative counsel through all of that work putting together those bill reports? But at the same time, those sometimes provide an avenue for the minority party, especially on an issue. It could be minority Republicans, minority Democrats, or a combination thereof, to be able to defeat a bill based off of those issues. And so we did not recommend doing away with bill analyses or anything of that nature. We simply suggested this, that you change the otherwise discretionary decision to overrule a point of order for substantial compliance to be a mandatory. If the rules have been substantially fulfilled and a violation does not deceive or mislead, the speaker shall overrule the point of order. That is a very, very mild modification to the discretion as opposed to the standard. The second would basically require that every committee report, the author gets to append a statement to that committee report if they so choose to correct an issue with it. Now, if they append a statement that creates a point of order, well, that's on the member. It's on them. But if they feel strongly that a committee report had an error and they don't want to slow down the process of going back, but they want to append a report by the time it gets before it's distributed, they can do so. For example, we've had points of order before that the committee report did not adequately address which sections of the bills created rulemaking authority. It's a little ambiguous on a bill about that last session. Well, if the author felt strongly about it, they could just say, the committee clerk or whoever created this report did not say Section 3 created rulemaking authority, but the way I read Section 3, it does, and I want to let everybody know that. And if they're right, then they're good. If they're wrong, they've just created a point of order for themselves. But the burden's on the member, okay? The last thing was to do away with the point of order based off of the background and purpose, and to replace the background and purpose with simply a statement of the author's intent for filing. I never understood why we needed a background and purpose. Every member here was elected by their constituents, and if you woke up one morning and just decided to file a bill, you should be free to do so, and you can be questioned on the floor, why did you file this bill? And you say, well, I just woke up and I decided to do so. And we could all be, well, that's a bad idea. We should not pass legislation like that. I don't see the need for a bill analysis to include a background and purpose when you could just simply ask the author on the floor, why did you file the bill? And it's a very simple question. And unlike the bill analysis itself that goes through all the provisions and the repealers and all the technical jargon. So with that, that's number 8.
Members, any questions? Seeing none, you may proceed.
Number 9 deals with streamlining the consideration of points of order. This is before my time, but there was a period of time when point of order decisions would be kind of announced by the chair, but then a ruling, the exact reason for the ruling wasn't given to him way later, so a provision was put into the rules to require that to be distributed. And our functional practice has been when you raise a point of order and it's sustained or overruled, and you want, well, if it's overruled and you want a write-up, we kind of sit there for a while that's written up. And sometimes that could take 5 minutes. Sometimes it could take 30 to an hour. You can't just postpone the bill till later to functionally do that, because many times those points of order are raised on an amendment. And so we're going to push time out. We're going to go to another bill, we'll come back, and then we're going to have another point of order on another amendment. See, we're not saving time. So the provision that was recommended by the committee is that while a question of order is pending, the House, by a majority vote of the members present and voting, may adopt a motion permitting the House to proceed with the calendar while the question of order is pending, including further amendments to the same proposition. if the subject question of order is an amendment until the matter is resolved. Gives you some flexibility to continue working while they're doing a write-up. And it modifies the procedure in E that after arguments are concluded, all the speaker has to announce is whether the point of order is sustained or overruled. Does not have to give a reason quite at that moment, but a written explanation has to be read into the record by the end of the legislative day. So that is the provision on timing of handling it. Now, there's a second part of this about the timeliness of certain points of order. 9A is added that says the speaker shall overrule a point of order raised to a violation of the section of the rules governing committee reports, committee minutes, or accompanying documentation if the point of order is not submitted in writing to the speaker prior to the second reading of the first bill or resolution on the same calendar on which the bill or resolution appears. This would just require that committee report points of order be raised at the start of the calendar so that they can be dealt with. We can have a heads up on it. Everyone has time to prepare, and they can be dealt with more efficiently. The speaker shall overrule a point of order against a bill or resolution that's not related to a committee report if the point of order does not concern violation of a procedural provision of the Texas Constitution, it existed at the time the bill or resolution was first laid before the House on second reading, was not submitted in writing to the speaker prior to the second reading of the bill, and the bill or resolution was not taken up out of order. Let me explain this one. So, let's say you had a point of order that a bill violated the two-subject rule. As you know, the two-subject rule is not only in the House rules, but is in the Texas Constitution. You can raise that at any time, okay? But let's say that you had a point of order on some other provision of the rule. I'm trying to think of it. Trey Martinez Fisher one. He always has very unique ones. Insert some other rule, very high, that does not deal with the Constitution. It's a rule we've imposed on a bill. Well, if it doesn't do with the committee report, what you would have to do is just submit it in writing before that individual bill gets brought up. And the whole idea is that you would have them brought up front, we would have time to resolve them in an efficient way, and then we could carry on with the bill or not. Because if the bill's going to die on a point of order anyways, what's the point of spending about 5 or 6 hours on it? And to the extent that you need time to negotiate the bill, motion to postpone can be used, and as well as while the point of order is being considered, but before it is ruled on, you can still negotiate the bill. You can negotiate, hey, I'll withdraw that point of order if you won't take this amendment, etc. So that was the idea of speeding up that process that you can see in the new Section 9A. Happy to answer any questions.
Members, any question? Representative Hunter.
So, Cody, so I understand. The idea is basically the length of time it takes to do a point of order.
Correct.
Is to create efficiency in the process.
Correct.
So this is what I want to make sure you've all thought of. So let's say it's House bill deadline night.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any mechanism so it's not abused to kill bills? For example, we get down, we have 20 minutes left. Somebody does a point of order. We try to go to the next bill. That bill's important. Time runs out and the bill dies. So do you have a mechanism where you can preserve? I just don't want people playing points of order to kill a bill, delay a bill, so another bill gets put in front and then you never get back to the bill. So I know nobody will do that ever, by the way.
Hyper-technically, that has been done. I've seen it on that exact circumstance. And usually what happens in that moment, and you have more experience than me, but usually the member, even if it's not a valid point of order, they consider their bill dead because they don't want to kill something behind them. They don't want to wait, right? And so a point of order will be called, and they'll just say, okay, I'm just going to self-immolate my own bill, just, whatever, and let's move on. To your point about whether or not these changes would result in a delay in that situation, they would not. The delay is already inherent in the rules itself. Because right now, when a point of order is called in that circumstance, and during the snap count, the point of order has to be resolved before we can move to the next bill. Whereas this rule change actually gives the body the ability by a majority vote to just move along while they consider that point of order. So this provision would actually give a mechanism, not guaranteed that it's used, but a mechanism for the House to just keep moving.
And I agree with the keep moving, because I think most members are bothered that we sit there.
Yeah.
And the only thing is, would you just think through before, on January 14th when they go to the rules, just think through, I don't want somebody with your good intent using it as a gotcha rule.
That's absolutely.
Just be ready for that, because I think all of us would like to do what you're saying, time management, efficiency, and get to the point. I just don't want it to be used as a sword to hurt somebody else's bill. So just take a look at that.
Very true. Every single rule change you ever make can have unintended consequences, for sure. Mr. Chairman, number 10.
Hang on just a second.
Sure.
Any
Oh, there's
other
another
questions from members? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you.
Number 10 was to make the motion for previous question a privileged motion. Right now,